northeast. It's the core of it is moving over Raleigh, North Carolina as we speak. And it's moving northeast at about 23 miles an hour. And as a result, again, it's just bringing in a deluge of heavy rain. We have a new heavy rain to report to pass along here to you in terms of rainfall from this storm. It's incredible. Sparta, North Carolina has received 11.4 inches. That's just to the 4 miles to the southeast of Sparta, North Carolina. 11 inches through noon today. So it is incredible. Once these storms make landfall, that tropical moisture moves inland and it can just pour. That's why we are seeing right now heavy rain to the west of Raleigh, Durham. Severe thunderstorm warning until the top of the hour, 5 o'clock Eastern time, and even until 5:15 in a number of communities. All these blinking boxes are severe thunderstorm warnings, meaning that we could have damaging wind gusts up to 60 miles an hour, and not necessarily associated with the terminology of a severe thunderstorm warning. These are also producing very heavy rainfall rotating around the center of the storm at the moment. These, again, thunderstorms, we'll let you know if we do have any tornado warnings. In fact, actually, one has popped up. We do have this tornado warning until 4:45. This is in the greater central Virginia area. So we'll look at that. Again, this is just to the south of Farmville. It's until 4:45 Eastern. Tornado warning means that, again, we have a cell, in this case, a line with the thunderstorms moving across with Michael that could produce a tornado. That apparent tornado is going to be located within. At first glance, the rotation appears to be on the weaker side. However, take it very seriously if you are near Blackstone, to west of Blackstone over to Farmville, as these, again, can produce isolated tornadoes. We'll keep you posted here on any severe thunderstorms, tornadic storms as well. We do want to get you into some other cities, let you know what is happening, and we'll loop it over the last hour to show you that, again, most of this is to the west of Richmond and Virginia Beach, but it will be moving your way very slowly. Charlottesville into the Shenandoah Valley, eventually into northern Virginia. We have a lot of heavy rain that's moving in. Some of this could eventually go severe. Up into the northeast, so Reading, Philadelphia, into Jersey. This will fill in overnight tonight. There's some pockets of heavy rain moving through the Big Apple in New York City into southern New England. Some heavy rain moving through Cape Cod, which is going to be very wet and windy, along Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard, Long Island, and into New England. We have some rain that's just beginning in some areas of southern New England. The storm is winding down in places where it hit, made landfall in northern Florida and the Panhandle through parts of Alabama, Georgia, getting up to several inches. In South Carolina, that wind and rain is really quickly winding down. But again, we do watch the warnings that we do have in this area, and it does appear that these continue for the time being. We'll keep you posted, but I do want to check a little bit into the future. And here's Meredith.
Thanks so much, Stephen. You're looking at some video that we had coming in from Roanoke, Virginia, one of 2 cities that are actually under a flash flood emergency, 2 counties that is, and Roanoke County as well as Pennsylvania County. And here's that new one that just came up. These both go until this evening, and it's because we're going to continue to see the heavy downpours, and as a result, we're going to watch out for that threat of flash flooding in many of these neighborhoods. We've seen streets already that have turned into rivers, and we're now going to be seeing new counties issued. In fact, I've got a good feeling we're going to have a lot more flash flood emergencies, if not flash flood warnings issued, because of the heavy rain as we get into later tonight. Right now, though, we do have flash flood warnings that go from Fayetteville to Raleigh, Winston-Salem, all the way up into Virginia, as far to the north as Charlottesville. And the green that you're seeing, this is where we have a flash flood watch. So even if it's not raining in your area just yet, there's a lot of moisture that's going to be moving across, and that threat's going to linger. But we've been watching the visible satellite over the last couple of hours. You can kind of see some of the pockets here where we've had some of those storms fire up. But Michael is now a tropical storm, in case you are just joining us. We've got winds at 50 miles per hour, but look at how fast this thing is moving. 23 miles per hour. It's got to push, and it's moving out. And the good news is it will be out over the ocean by Friday morning, taking all of those threats with it. And eventually that will continue to go out to sea. But I did mention threats, and we do have a tornado watch that's going to be in place through 9 p.m. tonight. I am sure we will see some of these counties extended as that storm passes through. But even from Virginia Beach down to Kill Devil Hills, near Fayetteville up to Raleigh, we're going to watch out for those spin-up tornadoes. We've been talking about this with Steve for the last hour. You get a little bit of rotation within, especially around the eye wall, and we could see a brief tornado, but still powerful enough to come through a neighborhood and cause damage. And that severe outlook's going to go anywhere from Raleigh up to Richmond, and even as far north as our nation's capital and even New York City in the Big Apple. So that's what we'll be following for you here as the storm continues to move off the shore. You'll see over the last 4 hours where those heaviest, most intense bands have been. And then eventually this will move out. As I mentioned, here's the timing. You'll see Richmond, Virginia Beach, Washington, D.C. This is going to scoot right along the coast and take all that heavy water with it, as well as those downpours. And then eventually, as we get into early Friday morning, we will start to see the rain really wrap up for places that are under those flash flood warnings right now. Thanks so much for checking in with us here on Weather Nation. Our team coverage continues both out in the field and here in studio. You're looking at Nags Head, North Carolina. And David, this is the same area. We go back weeks that we were talking about Florence, but now a whole different storm is impacting these communities.
It is indeed, and reaching out to the east, especially as you get onto the east here, Meredith, and we look at the storm. It's bringing up that southerly wind flow again, back around, running it up into the mountains, probably squeezing out a lot of that just because of the mountains off to the west into western Virginia, North Carolina, and enhancing the rain a little bit.
And as a result, we've seen some communities under flash flood warnings. We have a couple of counties under flash flood emergencies in Washington, or excuse me, in Virginia, including Roanoke County. So that's just another hazard in addition to severe weather, which you're keeping a very close eye on.
Are indeed, and we've had a couple of warnings over the past 30 minutes or so. A couple of tornado warnings that are now expired. This one as well, just south and west of Richmond. Looks like they're going to allow that to expire. But we still have several severe thunderstorm warnings and the like across the area there as well. We'll go to the radar imagery and show you as we look at it right now from Greensboro back over to Raleigh. This is North Carolina, northward up into Richmond, I-95. Look at the heavy rainfall that's coming down here. In some cases, 1.5 inches, 2 inches per hour across the region as it goes northward and into the nation's capital tonight. Baltimore, in the next couple of hours, you'll start to see some of the heavier rain from the south as well, moving into Philadelphia, New York City. Already some of the rain into New York City and Boston. That'll keep moving on to the east as we go through time. But the bulk of the precipitation right here around the low center itself and some of the banding offshore. A little bit of difference overall this time with the banding is that the bulk of it is offshore. If you remember with Florence came from the east to the west and brought some banding back onshore that was producing tornadoes throughout its entirety for about 3 days after the storm made landfall. A lot of this banding is staying offshore. Still, nonetheless, we do get some of these tornadoes that are forming up around Richmond southward all the way back down into central sections of the Carolinas, D.C., Philadelphia, New York City. Back over to Boston, there's a severe thunderstorm warning just to the south there into Boston. Chatham and Orange counties in North Carolina underneath severe thunderstorm warning. Durham and Person County for the next 34 minutes, you're underneath a severe thunderstorm warning as well. So that's where we stand at the moment. What about the latest on Michael? Meredith has some of those new details.
Thanks so much, David. One of the things we've been following, as we were just mentioning, is the flooding, and you're seeing video now coming in from South Carolina, where we are dealing with streets and neighborhoods turned into rivers. Very dangerous conditions out there. Please make sure not to go in floodwaters, whether it's with your car or yourself. It's dirty in there and you don't know what's in the water, whether it's a pothole or whether it is a snake or some other creature like that. We've seen that with some past storms. But right now, Tropical Storm Michael winds at 50 miles per hour. What's very interesting to note with this storm, it's moving to the northeast at more than 20 miles per hour. This thing is going to be screaming off to the northeast and eventually get back out over open water as we get into Friday morning, which is good because that means it's going to be taking all of those hazards with it. And then this thing just continues to move out to sea, but look how fast it's expected to just shoot off into open waters. So that's good news, but unfortunately we're still going to see some threats over the next couple of good days, including including tornadoes. This tornado watch goes until 9 p.m. tonight, includes many of the areas already experiencing rain from Michael right now, and we still could see that spin up as we get into the evening. The rest of today, we'll still be focusing on the biggest threat for severe weather right along the coast. This is going to be from North Carolina all the way up into New Jersey, so a big area that we'll be focusing on. And just looking at this over the last 4 hours, you can see how fast it's moving, but also where we're still getting some of those onshore bands right here. So we have to watch out too for maybe even some water spouts along the coast, especially as the system comes out over the water. But the forecast just really picks up on the speed. You'll notice by 11 p.m. tonight, some of the heaviest peak bands from Virginia Beach up to Philadelphia, even New York City. Get ready for some heavy amounts of rain as we get officially into your weekend, probably being a really rough commute for some if you're an early morning riser from Philly up to New York City. So make sure you are staying with us here at Weather Nation. You know the hazards for your neighborhood. And you also have our app, because if there's any watches or warnings, we'll make sure that we can let you know. Plus, you can also catch our live stream right in the palm of your hand.
Michael still moving northward and eastward along the Atlantic, along the Atlantic seaboard, Richmond, Washington. Back over to D.C., then northward to New York City, Boston, also picking up some of the heavier rain, and there are some thunderstorms into the area there as well. In fact, a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings that remain. Durham and Person counties, you're underneath a severe thunderstorm warning at the moment. And zooming in here to North Carolina, I-40 Greensboro back over to Raleigh-Durham. Some of the heavier rain showers, thunderstorms there. Back up to Richmond, I-64 and I-95 through the corridor. I-81 going northward. Just to the east of Baltimore and D.C., some of the heavier rain as well. And from Philadelphia, then, as you get all the way back up into the I-95 region going into New York City, you'll find some of the heavier rain there. Also sitting off to the south and west along I-87, I-90 going northward over to Boston. Yeah, there's some thunderstorms here too. Just down to the south of Worcester, you'll find some of the heavier rain showers and thunderstorms also. We're Weather Nation. We'll be back in a moment.
So glad that you're still here with us on Weather Nation as we bring you the latest on Michael. We've been showing you what has happened before, up to landfall, and now after the storm, and the effects now moving to places like Wrightsville Beach. Look at that surf, David. Those are some huge waves, and the winds just whipping through this area. Big waves, especially coming in on the south, the eastern side of North Carolina, but the ones that are facing south, the landmass that is facing to the southeast, especially as you come around from Kitty Hawk, just about down south, or those are the ones that are going to be taking the brunt of this, because it's a south wind that will be coming up south, moving from south to north. And so it's we've seen some of that inundation there across the eastern sections of the Carolinas, and also what we knew would be a threat for some tornadoes to spin up, some severe thunderstorms as well. Severe thunderstorms are not as prevalent during tropical systems as much as this is, but we have a frontal boundary that was interacting with the whole thing. So in that case, there's colder air aloft to allow that. Let's go right to the Viper radar and talk about what's happening at the present. You can see from Raleigh-Durham back over to Greensboro in North Carolina, some of the heavier rain that's still popped up region into the eastern sections of Virginia as well. Richmond back down to the south along I-95. Then you go to D.C., Baltimore, up into this area. Some of those thunderstorms starting to come in from the south and west and move northeastward into the state. They'll be making their way at about 30 miles per hour or so. So by 6, 7 o'clock tonight, you'll start to see more in the way of precipitation coming down. It's going to be prolonged too. In Maryland, all the way up into Boston, Connecticut, you'll see it as it comes in from the south and remains through the overnight hours tonight. Some very heavy rainfall. Then you go to Greensboro, Durham, Raleigh, I-40 back over to Rocky Mount. Some of those thunderstorms will start to pick up as well here. And then there is where the bulk of the precipitation is and where the highest winds are going to be in that little banding area there that goes around the upper side of our low pressure center. As it goes northward, Charlottesville, Richmond, and to Petersburg, that's when you'll see some of the highest winds of the day coming in. And they could still exceed 50 to 60. Some gusts will. Even though we're not talking about a hurricane anymore, we'll still have some of the gustiness that's associated
with this in a tropical storm, and going northward up into Charlottesville, the I-64 region to Fredericksburg and Dale City. That's where some of that will be as well. A couple of warnings for you there into the eastern sections of the Carolinas. It's Durham and Pierson counties. You're underneath a severe thunderstorm warning for the next 25 minutes, as well as Coswell in North Carolina. It's Danville City in Virginia. That's a severe thunderstorm warning, as well as Halifax County in Virginia. You're under a severe thunderstorm warning also. And that's about it as far as precipitation goes into the eastern United States, Meredith, but it does go all the way to the north, up into the central and eastern sections of Maine. Actually, I want to take a sneak peek and talk to Logan Poole, who filed this report about Panama City just a few moments ago.
We are currently in the eastern sections of Panama City. Northwestern eye wall of Michael came roaring through here yesterday, and behind me, just one of many scenes of devastation. This building just almost completely destroyed. There were several parts of it that are completely leveled, and you can see the blocks just thrown about. We could walk for miles here, and you would just continue to see that the devastation like this is expansive. It's very reminiscent of tornado damage that we've seen in the past, and at times it's easy to forget that this was in fact a hurricane, because the scenes are so much different than what we're used to with hurricane damage. If you look behind me real quick, it's happening right now. You'll see there that this is kind of what's been going on across the city, just pushing debris down the streets, trying to clear it into piles as best they can. We'll try to give you a good view of that. And that's ongoing all across town and really all across this portion of Florida, as it was devastated yesterday by one of the most violent hurricanes in our history. So we continue to be here monitoring the situation. It is as bad as you have heard it is, I promise, and worse. So we'll bring you the latest as quickly as we hear it. One thing I do want to add before we go is that if you are trying to get down towards areas like Mexico Beach or Port St. Joe from Panama City, Highway 98 is going to be shut down for a very long time. We're told that buildings in portions of Mexico City are still collapsing. So we're going to be here. We'll keep you up to date. Make sure you stay tuned to Weather Nation for the latest.
Much as our meteorologist Logan Poole from the field. Now you're looking at a picture from Grayson County, because on the other side we're going to see not just the threat for tornadoes, severe weather, but also flooding. And these are some pictures coming in from Grayson County, Virginia. We talked with the Grayson County Sheriff's Office. Many roads, you're seeing a lot of scenes like this. And we even have flash flood emergencies in place that go from now until later tonight. That means flash flood is occurring. And if you're told you need to evacuate or get to higher ground, please make sure to listen to those local authorities and do so. Serious situation out there with flash flooding, not just there, but also across many parts of North Carolina, from Raleigh to Winston-Salem, all the way up into Virginia. And also Roanoke County continues to be under a flash flood emergency also. And I was talking to some of the local people there, and they just said the flooding has been crazy in the streets. It's dangerous. If you don't have to go out, just don't do it. Wait until maybe tomorrow to get those errands done, because the rain's going to continue in many of those locations as we get into the next couple of days. But I do want to show you really quickly our tropical storm Michael, moving northeast at 24 miles per hour. This thing is moving, and it's going to be taking all of this moisture with it. But we still have the rest of today to deal with these impacts. As you can see, Friday morning, that will be a different story. Once we get into Friday evening, that thing is going out to sea. So that's good news. We always like to see that. But as I just mentioned, we do still have some hazards. In addition to flooding, we also have that threat of tornadoes, a pretty big tornado watch in association with Michael, going from Kill Devil Hills to Washington to Raleigh, even all the way up into Lynchburg and Richmond. Take every warning seriously, and we'll be tracking them for you right here on Weather Nation. And if there's a tornado warning, David Neal is all over it.
We got it for you right here in the eastern sections of the Carolinas. We don't have a tornado warning, but we have several severe thunderstorm warnings, so we'll continue to monitor this for you for the rest of this evening as it goes northward, because the potential is still there. A tornado watch remains until 9 p.m. tonight across the eastern sections of North Carolina and Virginia, and some of those thunderstorms beginning to pop there just to the west of Richmond still this evening. A little bit of daytime heating probably enhancing the threat already, combined with the fact that there is a tropical storm coming northward, a former hurricane of prolific magnitude that headed across the Gulf Coast. Our live team coverage continues right here on Weather Nation. Welcome back to Weather Nation as we take a look at it. It looks a little bit like tornado damage. In some cases, it'd be a huge tornado, but this is Mexico Beach there in Florida. Highway 98 going down to the south there. 38 that goes off to the east over to Apalachicola. I'm just seeing some of these pictures for the first time myself from a helicopter there, obviously. Just tremendous destruction all across that portion of northwest Florida. We sort of talked about it. We won't recognize this area for quite some time. There's going to be not days, not months, but maybe years of continued new construction that'll be taking place and lives that are affected. That'll take even, structures can be replaced. So that's how devastating it was there across northwestern Florida and even up into South Georgia and South Alabama. Some damage as well, not exactly Category 5 hurricane damage. It was a 4, but so, a mile away from being called a Category 5. It was doesn't matter what category. Damage is damage, and that was devastating.
And I think in every single video, you watch it 1, 2, 3 times, there's something new that you'll see, whether it was a boat, whether it was a house that was destroyed, whether it may even be a place you recognize. I know you've spent time in the Florida Panhandle a lot, and
lived there for
city, it's just heartbreaking.
Yeah, lived there for quite some time, from Tallahassee over to Panama City, Destin, Fort Walton Beach. Spent a lot of time down in Apalachicola, places that, again, and I've talked to a lot of people today who live down there. In fact, I talked to a young woman who lives in Mexico Beach. She's moments away from getting back to her home, which is where our very own Brett Adair rode out part of the storm yesterday when he went to safety. And so I know people in the days to come will be doing that, and thoughts and prayers from here. We're out in Denver, Colorado, but I think everybody across the country is. Our thoughts and prayers are with everybody there into northwest Florida and the rest of the southeast. Even now, we still have some thunderstorms going north. We're at a tornado watch that remains in effect. So the weather as we see it at the moment remains very key to us. There's the tornado watch, goes until 9 p.m. tonight. But the showers and thunderstorms associated with our former hurricane are into the eastern sections of the United States. Right now, we have severe thunderstorm warnings that exist all the way from North Carolina, northward up into Virginia, the western sections of Virginia. This is butting up against the mountains, and I think it's a little bit enhanced as well as we see these winds coming in from the southeast and come up, and then the air parcel has to rise a little bit, so sometimes you get enhancement across the Appalachians as we go north through that region, all the way up in D.C. Now some of the rain beginning to fall. That'll continue to do so as we get into the rest of this evening. It's going to be a rainy night tonight in Dale City, Washington, Rockville over to Baltimore, Philadelphia. Some of the showers coming in, but rain will be in earnest after midnight tonight, as well as New York and Yonkers over to Bridgeport, southern sections of Connecticut as well, just south of Hartford. You'll start to see some of that, and around Boston, Brockton, some of those showers and storms will begin to move in from the southwest. Already a severe thunderstorm warning because of high winds coming into the south and western sections of Boston, Quincy, back over to I-95. And Meredith, those will continue into the next couple of hours also.
Right, and we'll be watching that as well as the other threats. But right now I do want to take you to Panama City, Florida, where we are checking in with yet another one of our analysts from out in the field. We have Brandon Clement joining us. And Brandon, it has been a long last couple of days. What have you seen after sunrise this morning?
Well, after sunrise this morning, we got on a helicopter about 7:30 this morning, so just after first light, and we're coming down through Panama City. You can see the Panama City Beach. You can see the destruction. But when we got to the Air Force Base, it was really bad. A fighter jet flipped upside down. Hangars were just completely destroyed. Building roofs missing, and kept working our way east and got down to Mexico Beach, and that's where it was just complete and absolute devastation. It looked like somebody dropped a nuclear bomb on the place. And I didn't realize just how bad it was. I did, but I didn't. It wasn't until a little later that somebody had sent me a picture of before of Mexico Beach, and from the same angle some of the helicopter footage was shot. And I didn't realize some of the sand areas that were going down were one neighborhood. It's just sand now. You can't even see the homes, can't see the slabs, anything. So that's when I realized just how bad it was. All those big debris piles are, you see it, it's horrible. But when you see what used to be neighborhoods and is now just sand, it's just, you just can't imagine what happened on that island that night. Or that coastline. It's very bad. Now I'm back in Panama City now. Panama City actually took a bad beating. It's actually worse than Panama City Beach because the building codes aren't quite as good here as they are along the coast. Sitting here in front of Jenks Middle School. Had some drone footage yesterday of the same school, but right now you can look through it. Got one wall down where you see a basketball, and you're looking directly through the other wall. It's blue sky. It's just, completely collapsed walls on each side.
Brandon, we have about 30 seconds. You've covered a lot of these storms. Is there anything about this that sticks out to you? I mean, you've seen the destruction for other storms. We know every single storm is different. What have you noticed about this one that will stick out in your mind forever?
All I can think of is Homestead, Florida after Andrew, the Mississippi Gulf Coast after Katrina, the coastline in Asia after the tsunamis, that type of destruction in Mexico Beach. And I'm sure it's worse or just as bad some areas to the east of there, but we weren't able to fly any farther because the TFR was issued.
You definitely gave me goosebumps there. That was our own Brandon Clement, our field correspondent, who's joining us. And we have our whole team of storm analysts that are out there with coverage for you of what's been happening and what we're still expecting. You're looking at some video now from earlier, and David and I were just talking about this. It literally looks like when a tornado goes through, a tree is just severed for miles as far as you can see.
Yeah, some of the What we do know about wind is that a lot of times during a tornado, because the wind comes up so fast, the tree doesn't have time to push over. A gradually increasing wind speed will push a tree over. One that just comes up all of a sudden and bam, makes it up to 150 miles per hour, will break a tree off. So a lot of the trees that we were seeing, trees were broken off. Now, you can see right here, they're broken off. That means the wind went from not a whole lot to a whole lot in a short amount of time, which typically is something you would see from a tornado. I spoke with Brent Adair last night, and we were talking about how quickly everything happened. The eye of the hurricane had the intensity within it, and at some point, about 50 miles away from the eye of the hurricane, the winds weren't horrible to begin with. You had to come into a band, but then right around the eye, it was about, right in the thickness of the band that was going around the eye was about 5 or 6 miles, and right there's when everything happened immediately. So we learned something there when that did take place. I believe we're going to have a press conference here in just a moment that'll be coming up, and we'll be listening. This is the governor of North Carolina, I believe.
And flood, especially the Catawba, Rocky, Paw, and Tar rivers. We're also seeing flash flooding in some cities like Charlotte, Raleigh, and Chapel Hill. Dozens of swiftwater rescues and evacuations have taken place today in Guilford, Forsyth, Iredell, Henderson, Burke, and other counties. I'm grateful to all the first responders who are stepping up yet again.
Once again, that was Governor Roy Cooper there of North Carolina reiterating that they were paying close attention to what was still happening, any rivers that are rising, and talking about whether or not how to get help back into the area. They're consolidating, bringing everybody back in from the state trooper's office all the way down. And so, you know, kind of anticipated here. We even had our John Van Pelt on standby because knowing there was going to be some heavy rain there into the Carolinas, that was going to be something that we'd have to deal with. And still a couple of tornado warnings as well into the area there, Meredith. We have a tornado warning right now into Virginia that we're looking at. This is a storm that is headed northward just to the west of Richmond, Virginia. That's going to be one tornado warning there among several severe thunderstorm warnings. It's Amelia County, Chesterfield, and Dinwiddie County. You're underneath Nottingham as well. A tornado warning. That is this storm just to the west of I-85 and moving northward to the west of Petersburg, headed up toward Richmond, just to the western side of Richmond City, and then moving on northward through the region. Farmville is off to the west there, so definitely looking at that to make sure that as this goes on by, we keep all the details going. It's all embedded within an area of super heavy rainfall, too. That goes down to Raleigh, Durham, and then as far north as Washington, D.C., Baltimore. Some of the heavier rain of the moment that we've been watching there. It's been off and on at rates of 1.5 inches to 2 inches per hour at times, and definitely bears watching there across all of the eastern sections of North Carolina. So we certainly want to keep you up to date on what's happening there too. We go up to the radar imagery coming out of North Carolina, and I can show you this is heavy stuff there just to the south and west of Richmond, and the likely tornado warning sitting right there just to the north and west of I-85, working its way northward in between Farmville. And you remember there was a tornado here, I don't know, a month ago or so that we were looking at, going through about the same area, Powhatan to the north and Laurel to the east. So all indications are that this thing is moving at about 35 miles per hour to the north, and you should take cover immediately if you live in this portion of Virginia. It's about 7 miles to the north of McKinney now, 45 to 50 miles per hour, moving toward the town of Powhatan. A very dangerous storm likely producing a tornado there into the area of central Amelia County and Dinwiddie County in south central Virginia. As this goes northward, next in line would be the Powhatan area or Charlottesville. We got a thunderstorm warning down to the south here that we're also monitoring. That would be moving up and crossing over I-64 in the next 30 minutes also, so definitely want to watch that too. But the main bulk of what we're looking at is some of the heavy rainfall that is occurring across the area into eastern North Carolina, the Virginias, Washington, D.C., I-70, and I-81 that goes eastward, and still more to come.